So we're feeling a little bit conflicted recently almost, because obviously living in Munich, it's an awesome location, so close to the Alps and so close to many amazing lakes down in South Bavaria, and I just keep wanting to come back to this local forest. And the confliction really is between myself and this YouTube channel. And essentially what I mean is that I keep thinking, oh, I should go down to the Alps because, you know, that's what people want to see. They want to see the grand vistas, and on the other side of that, I want to be coming here. So essentially I'm going back to the woodland because I want to shoot for myself, which is what we should all be doing, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I realise that at times I know I have to go above and beyond for the sake of the channel, like there's no doubt in that. But at the minute, I'm just really enjoying my woodland photography, and I'm just going to grab a bit of shelter, bit of a rain shower here. Yeah, I want to be doing things for myself, and I want to be back in this woodland, and I'm just really enjoying my woodland photography at the minute. I can feel myself improving slightly, and yeah, so I've decided to come back to said woodland, as you can see, and it's still stunning. We've still got many autumn colours, even though it's probably getting on towards more of a sort of late autumn now. And yeah, I've picked out a small area that I'm going to explore around a little bit and see what I can find. The light's not incredible, as you can see. It's rained a little bit. It started to rain a little bit, so I don't know if we're going to get any light at all shining through these clouds. There's a few gaps, but yeah, we'll see. Yeah, it's raining now, fairly heavy. Oh, the rain's a bit bittersweet, guys, to be honest, because, well, it's good because I love being out in the rain. I love being in the woodland in the rain. I think it makes the photography much better. It brings a bit of drama to your scenes. It creates a sort of sheen on all the leaves and tree trunks and all that sort of thing. But it's bad because I forgot my rain jacket, which is super annoying and super frustrating. For two reasons, really. One, because it was forecast, so I'm stupid. Secondly, because as I left the house, I was convinced that I'd forgotten something. But I was only thinking about my gear. Turns out I forgot my waterproofs. But anyway, I'm here now, and I'm just going to stick it out. I'm just going to get wet. It doesn't really matter. Now, at the start of this video, I mentioned that I'd picked out a small area in this forest. Now, this forest is huge. It really is massive. And there's all these sort of main roadways and paths sort of leading around the forest. It's almost like a block system, which is great because it means you can get around really, really quick and sort of seek out smaller patches and sections of the forest that you might think look nice, you know. For us as photographers, that's really, really good. And I found this particular section here that I've walked past a couple of times this week, and it really appeals to me because it's quite spaced out, it's quite open. You know, it's not as busy, it's not like a really sort of crowded section of the forest where there's just tons of trees and it feels like there's no space. And this kind of appeals to me a lot more because a really large percentage of what I'm trying to achieve when I'm trying to get a photograph in the woodland is simplicity. That's really what I'm going for. So trying to find a scene that's nice and simple and there's not loads of mess on the floor like you've got around here. And when there's a space that's opened out like this, obviously that makes it much easier, in theory. So I've been walking around for about half an hour, 40 minutes, and I haven't really found anything just yet. But I am thoroughly enjoying it, and I think because of the rain, and it looks like we're probably not going to get any light now for the rest of the afternoon, what I want to look for is a sort of colour contrast. And like I said before as well, we've still got quite a lot of these autumnal colours. A lot of them are sort of dying down now, but there's still quite a lot of vibrancy here, which is awesome. So what I'm trying to look for, we've got, like, for example, over here I can see a couple of silver birches that are quite vibrant in their yellows, and then in the background we've got all these beautiful fir trees and pine trees that are real sort of deep green. So that's a wonderful contrast. So yeah, any sort of contrast that I can find, colour contrast, I think it's going to work quite well here. So yeah, just going to continue exploring for now, guys. So, the rain's back again. And I've realised I've forgotten something else as well. I forgot my memory card for my main camera. And usually I have 2 in it, so that's... like I said, I knew I'd forgotten something. So, I'm not even going to be able to take this photograph yet. I'm just composing. I'm going to have to take the memory card out of that camera, put it in here just to grab the shot. Now, I think I've found a really cool little scene here. You can probably see behind me. This particular section of the forest is really, really autumnal still, and so many beautiful, vibrant colours. I know I said it's late autumn, but where we are right now, this could be the middle of autumn, so it's a really nice little find. And I'm trying something, I suppose, a tiny little bit different than what I would usually try in the woodland. It's not particularly simple, but I'm just kind of playing around with depth of field a little bit. And I've also managed to find a nice bit of colour contrast, which is something that I wanted as well. And essentially what I've got in this composition, kind of 3 main parts, or maybe even I'd call them subjects, I'm not sure. But to start with, we've got this beautiful sort of branch coming off this trunk here, right at the bottom of this tree, and it's just like a proper sort of splash of gorgeous browny, reddy, orange autumn colours. It's fantastic. And I'm actually focusing on that, but that's going to be on the left hand third of my frame. So it's a little bit of an unconventional setup as well with regard to the composition. And then on the right hand side, a little bit further away from us where we're physically stood, there's another tree with all these branches sort of coming off it with all these gorgeous autumnal colours as well. So that's sort of second element. And then the third element, we've got a gorgeous, what I think is a silver birch tree in the background. Which is a yellow colour, so it's a nice contrast between these two deep sort of oranges and reds, and then we've got this really nice sort of almost pale yellow in the background, but it's still quite vibrant as well. It doesn't really make that much sense, but hopefully you'll understand a bit more when you see the photograph once it's come together. And then in the background, I've managed to eradicate as much of the sky as possible, which is really what I'm trying to do here, because that's just going to be an utter distraction. I've got a little bit of sort of grass at the bottom of the frame, and then right from the background we've got loads of sort of evergreeny sort of trees which are creating like a sort of backdrop and allowing us hopefully just to focus on these 3 elements. Now I'm just going to alter the composition ever so slightly. ISO 100, f5.6, because I'm zoomed right in at 55mm, and that's the widest open aperture that I can get, zoomed in at 55mm on this kit lens, and that's given me a shutter speed of 1/4 of a second and a really nice depth of field effect. So the main focus is on this flash of orange that I've got, which is going to be in the foreground, I suppose, on the left hand side of the frame, and then all of the focus is going to soften and soften and soften as it goes through the image. So it's a really nice idea of depth here, I think, as well. It's chucking it down now. There's something else that I wanted to say about this as well, but I've forgotten what it is. Yeah, I've just remembered. I've got my polarizer on the front as well. I'm going to have to give that a wipe before I take the photograph, because it's full of raindrops. And this is important to mention because I've put the photograph on. I put the polarizer on with the intention to get a specific effect for this photograph. And that was just to increase the vibrancy in all these colours. The yellows in the background on that, what I think is a silver birch, and all these beautiful oranges in the sort of foreground area here. However, when I move the polarizer around, I can see how much it changes because there's so much sheen on all these leaves because it's been chucking it down. It cuts through all that glare of that sheen, which I don't really like. So it's a bit of a catch-22. If I have the full use of the polarizer, it brings up all these beautiful colours. If I have no polarizer, I have a lot of sheen. So what I'm trying to do is kind of go somewhere in between, where we're getting a nice bit of colour, but also we're not taking too much of that sheen off the leaves, because it's a nice effect where we've got this sort of soft light coming down from these clouds above us, and it's creating these nice reflections on the leaves as well. So yeah, I think it's a pretty decent shot. It's definitely a nice autumnal shot, and for me it's definitely a nice progressive shot in the woodland, you know, to be trying something different. So I'm gonna have to grab the memory card out of that camera and take the photograph. So I'll do that now. I really hope you like this one, guys. So I've come away from that little autumnal scene, which was very beautiful, but this sort of little area as well has just caught my eye a bit, and we are getting some really nice light at the minute. And like the video I did a couple of weeks ago in this very same forest, I found another little, I don't know, I think is it a pine wood? I'm not sure, but it's really gorgeous, and I really like how the moss has just completely taken over the floor. And again, going back to the simplification thing, it just gets rid of so much mess and busyness. So I'm probably going to spend a bit of time in here, but I just wanted to quickly show you this small tree, or whatever it is here. You'll see this sort of yellowy green, well, it's got reds and browns on it as well, absolutely gorgeous. And you can probably see just from these pictures here how nice the light is. And obviously we haven't got any direct sunlight, it's still fairly early on in the day. It must be about 4 o'clock now, I think. But I just think this, well, it's just naturally caught my eye, and I think it's got such a beautiful glow to it. You can see there it's not very big at all, and I think I'd like to photograph it, but I'm just trying to show you how much it seems to differ as you go around it. I hope this sort of transcends into the photograph. Now I'm thinking like maybe somewhere here would be really cool. I'm not sure. And if you look here as well, we've got this nice sort of fallen trunk here on the floor, which perhaps could act as a little bit of a leading line up to it. And again, if I could kind of get in this sort of angle somewhere, maybe I could try and eradicate the sky or any background distractions. I don't know, but I think there might be something there. So I'm gonna get my camera out, no tripod or anything, and just try my best to try and make a composition and make a really nice scene there. And again, I'm really trying to go for simplification here, so see if I can work it out. So, unable to take the shot just yet because I haven't got a memory card in this thing, of course. Before I get into this, I'm having a good time. Honestly, this is awesome, and I don't know, I'd really recommend for you to do this if you're into photography, is to just go to a woodland, go to a forest with no expectations, and just chill out, just relax. It's so enjoyable. Oftentimes I'm getting so frustrated in the woodland, but today's one of those days where I just kind of came and thought, you know, there's probably still some autumnal colours. Let's just go out and enjoy it. If I don't get any photographs, so be it. It's really not a big deal. It's not a problem at all. And from my experience, when you go out with that sort of mindset, you end up getting more photographs than when you're putting the pressure on yourself. But yeah, this is great. It's really nice to experiment. I feel like with my woodland photography, in many ways, I'm still in a bit of an experimental phase where I'm just trying new things, and I feel really good because earlier on, you know, about an hour ago, I mentioned to you guys that I wanted to try and find some colour contrast, and I suppose in many ways this is kind of what this is. You know, you got these beautiful bright yellows of this small sort of tree here, and then all these deep greens of the moss in the background. It just seems to be working really well. So obviously, like I said, I can't take the photograph yet, but I had a little scout around it for about 15 minutes just with my camera in my hand, and eventually I've settled on this idea that I said to you guys, where I wanted to use this fallen tree trunk that's just bathed in all this beautiful moss as a little bit of a leading line, because it works perfectly. It's almost like it's been placed here for that exact reason. And it's fairly messy, you know, there's quite a lot of twigs and fallen leaves and stuff down here, but compared to one photograph I got a couple of weeks ago, we had loads of other sort of fallen branches and stuff in the foreground, and I just didn't like that at all. So for me, this is a really big improvement, basically. So ISO 100, I'm shooting at f5.6 again, and 1/6 of a second. What focal length are we talking here? I'm shooting pretty wide, yeah, about 20 mil, so almost at the widest angle that this lens will allow. and we are just getting some really nice soft light from the clouds. It's awesome. And what I'm doing is, I'll shoot at actually 1/8 of a second. I keep wanting to take the photograph, but I can't. I'm actually deliberately underexposing a little bit, because this is going to be my main subject, obviously this tree, even though we've got this trunk as a leading line, and it's quite bright in comparison to the rest of the moss and the trunk itself and some of these trees in the background. So I'm pretty much just making sure that I expose properly for this, because we're getting quite a lot of reflected light, and the highlights are actually quite bright, which is strange. And then on top of that, it means I can darken down all the shadows around it a little bit, and it kind of makes it pop a lot more. It increases the contrast between that and the rest of what's going to be in the frame. So yeah, I think this is going to be nice. Again, I've just zoomed in and manually focused on the actual small tree itself, whatever it bloody is. And yeah, that's pretty much that. Obviously shooting in a portrait dimension, which is quite rare for me, but I think it's going to be a nice little shot. So again, I'll grab the memory card out of there, shove it in here and grab the shot. So on Sunday morning, just gone, a lot of you guys have probably already seen, but I released a sort of extra video, or bonus video, I didn't really know what to call it, but if you haven't seen it, I'll stick it up in the corner here if you want to go and check it out. I'd love to hear some feedback from you guys. But it seems to have been fairly well received, and yeah, I think it's probably something I'd like to do going forward. You know, I'd like I said in the actual video itself, I'd like to think I'll be able to do it every week, as well as these videos. You know, these videos won't be affected at all on Tuesday evenings, because I just love doing them. But I also love doing this new little project, or whatever you want to call it. It's really enjoyable. And on Saturday, the video I'm going to release, it's going to include some probably quite unexpected news, but really exciting news at the same time. So I'd love you guys to tune in for that. That'll be on Sunday morning, I guess. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching today's adventure. It's been a great little wander in this woodland, and I really do feel like my woodland photography is starting to slowly progress. So yeah, all in all, a great little trip. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next week on the next adventure. Out. Thank you.